talk about it, plenty to do. So get the gossip, get the scoop, and tune right into the editorial to keep you in the loop. It's the Editorial, a Wichita by EB podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Editorial, a Wichita by EB podcast. Today, this one should be an exciting conversation depending on how you look at it and your views on what we're about to talk about. Today, I am joined by Fert the Foodie. How you doing?
Good.
And the Kansas Gastronomist.
What's up?
What's going on? All right, so this one could be a hot topic, could be a little touchy for some people. I know it is for a lot of people who comment on my blog. We're going to talk about bad reviews.
Ooh.
This is something that a lot of people don't think we should be doing. I know Jeremy, Fert, you've given your fair share of bad reviews. I obviously do as well. TKJ, you're kind of new to the realm. So what are your thoughts on bad reviews?
I mean, certainly I have done the least amount of bad reviews, and that's partially the amount of time I've been blogging, and partially because I think I've kind of evolved over the last couple of years. I think that there's definitely a need. We're calling them bad reviews or negative reviews?
Bad, negative, critical, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on how you want to define it, but it is important to be truthful. And so I'd say that truthful reviews are needed, and there's not as many truthful reviews probably of restaurants in Wichita as there are, I don't know, promotional reviews. Or
It's probably like that everywhere too, though, around the nation.
yeah,
I think
it could be. I
yeah.
mean, that's just my experience. You know,
Jeremy, just so we have to throw it out there, do you feel bad writing bad reviews?
No, not really, because I just feel like that's part of the
Yeah.
game, you know? Like, I consider myself a food critic, and I base what I do kind of off of those, like, New York Times food critic, you
Yeah.
know, that it's not newspaper
Yeah.
anymore. It's everything's social media digital.
yeah.
But I still feel like that's important because the consumer needs to know before they go. You know, a lot of places are very expensive,
Sure. Yeah.
and the one thing, you know, I don't always, if it's something that I know it's a one-off, then I usually don't talk about it.
Like, what do you mean, like a one-off?
So I've been doing this long enough where I can tell if it was just like they're just having a
Yeah.
bad night
Yeah.
that night,
Okay.
or if the place is just bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you know, I've been doing this long enough where I can tell. And so, yeah, there's some things that I don't post about because I knew it was just a bad night, you know.
I agree, and I think this is such as we're talking about this, such a large question because you've got things like preferences.
Yep.
You know, we were talking about pizza in a prior podcast, and do you like, thin crust with lots of sauce, or do you like thick crust with not that much sauce? And therefore, if you don't like that type, does it necessarily mean, oh, that's crap?
Yeah.
Then you've got the service. To your point about the one-off, I did a negative review. I think one of my first negative reviews was on Savoots.
Savoots, yeah, I remember that.
And I didn't give it a second chance. I give second chances to probably more restaurants than I should. But I knew that this was their product. They had fantastic or good service, and I didn't complain about the service. But I knew that this food was something that was definitely not my style, and there was no reason for me to go back and try it again.
And
Now
I think we all agree, right, on Savoots?
I'm not a fan.
I'm not a
Yeah,
fan
but-
either.
And I'm not trying to rip on
there- yeah.
Savoots, but
There are
did
people that are.
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my friends, his parents was one who encouraged me to go back. He's like, this is our favorite Italian place. And they go, we love this place. We've been going there for 30, 40 years or however long it's been. And
Mhm.
I was like, I went again. And just not my thing,
Mhm.
you know. And if it's, obviously it's for the people because they've been around for, this long.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to the feel bad thing, like I thought you were going to give me a different answer. Because
Well,
I actually do, I do feel bad. I would say if it's like a locally owned restaurant or if it's like a restaurant that you go in and the people are incredibly nice, and you're just like, man, the food's just not that good. And but then on the flip side, it's also like, we write what we're feeling, and like our word isn't gospel. Just because you like a dish, I like a dish, someone else may love that dish. So I'm like, I struggle with it because I want to write a bad review sometimes if I don't like the food, but then I'm like, I know, and I'm sure you guys know, if you say something, people are gonna take it as gospel or word or whatever, and not go to that place because of it.
But I've also learned that even bad press is good press. Some of these
Sometimes,
places,
yeah.
like I'll do a bad review and people are like, "Oh, I want to go. I'd never heard of that place, but I want to go
Yeah.
check it out for myself now."
Or their base shows up and they're like, Fert's wrong.
Oh yeah, they want to go prove
Yeah.
me wrong. Like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, But it still gets them to go, and I feel like that's with this whole influencer thing and social media thing and stuff. It's even if it's negative, it still drives business. I feel like.
I mean, I think it can. I mean, it just depends on, whether we're talking about the restaurant like Savoots that's been around for 50 or 70 years and has this huge following, or if it's that restaurant that's only been open for 2 weeks and they're like, I'm not going to give it a try.
Yeah.
And that's the factor that all of us take into account when we're thinking about what do we say. I mean, there's been so many times I've been places and nobody knew, maybe other than you guys, because I told you, because I went and I didn't have the best experience, but I didn't know if it was a one-off or if this was their thing, and whether it's because they were new or it was my first time there, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go back again some other time, but for now, delete, and I just don't say anything. So I'm not lying, but I'm not talking about it,
Do you have a bad experience? Sometimes you said you delete the thing or you just don't write about it. Do you have like a process of writing bad reviews? Like, do you wait a certain amount of time? Like for me, I'm probably sitting on a dozen or so bad experiences. I'm like, man, I don't want to write it, but eventually I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
And
See, I don't really sit on posts like you
Yeah.
guys do. I like to post when it's fresh in my mind.
And that's a good thing. I mean, yes, Eddie. Sometimes I've sat on something for a couple months, and it's not like I think about it every second, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, what am I gonna do?
yeah,
And it's not a process; it's just what I do. I can tell you, and I won't name the name of this restaurant, but I had a horrendous experience at a restaurant that had nothing to do with the food. It had everything to do with the situation, in which the person I was eating with, because it took so long and it should not have taken this long, was unable to eat their food. And I reached out to the restaurant, not through my blog, because I knew what the reaction would be if I reached out through my blog, but personally. And it was not handled well. And I struggled with whether or not to just, because it actually kind of pissed me off, whether to light them up or not. And then I just said, you know what? And maybe it was the right call, maybe it wasn't. I said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm not going to say anything, but I will never go back there, and you will never have a positive post or negative post from TKG.
Yeah.
And whether that was the right decision or not, I don't know, because it's difficult.
How long have you been writing for? Has it been
2 years?
Jeremy, you've been
6 years
6
here
years.
next month.
Have you changed how you write bad reviews as you have?
Mine's been always a straight shooter. There was the one time I consulted with you guys because it was just such a bizarre, kind of like your incident. It was just such a bizarre incident that I didn't want. For one, some of you guys were like, well, the waitress might get fired, and that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the last thing I'd want is somebody to lose their job over something.
Sure.
So I did consult with you guys because I was kind of like, I've never experienced this before,
Yeah.
I have changed how I write bad reviews over time. I think you've read some old stuff of mine from 10, 12, 11, 13 years ago. Like, I think I had one about a New Year's Eve dinner, and I said something along the lines of, this is the worst, blah, blah, I'll never go back to this place ever again.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, for lack of a better word, it fucking sucked. Since then, I give every place a second, third, fourth chance, depending on the situation. And I think for me, I have a lot of like family and friends in the industry. My parents were entrepreneurs and whatnot, and I guess for me, I see the damage that I can do, and I try to like not sugarcoat it, but I think when I write, people who followed me long enough, they know what I'm trying to get at. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna say it fucking sucks, but I'll say it in a different way.
Yeah.
So I try to be a little more careful and not so cutthroat with my words, even though sometimes it does come off as um, condescending. I don't know, snarky.
Yeah.
Snarky's probably the best word.
Yeah.
And sometimes I make jokes. Like I think I had a Subway review.
Yes.
That was a really bad review, and I try to make light of the situation.
That was my favorite post you've ever done.
Some
I'm
people
just saying.
do not appreciate it, and I get it. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but also like for me, writing is an outlet, and I'm just here to write my experiences, and I think that's why people came to me and started following me.
Yeah.
And I think recently someone came at me for writing a bad review. It's like you need to be more careful with your words, and you stop saying something's dry or whatever. But for me, I'm like, people came to me because I gave my opinion on something, and I'm just gonna be, for the most part, a straight shooter. I'm not gonna be like, I try not to be a dickhead blunt about it, but just somewhat to the point where I'm getting my feelings across.
And that's, I mean, we have to do what makes sense for us. And just like if something in our lives occur outside of our blog, same situation, we're all going to handle it different based on our experiences. And there's not one better way than another. I mean, when you were talking, I was just thinking of the quote that you can disagree without being disagreeable. You can say, I didn't like this food, or you can say, this food sucks.
Yeah.
Those statements are both true statements in a situation where you didn't like the food. And it doesn't mean that one person's doing it right or wrong. I would say that I think it's a good thing that we want to be truthful, because I think that there are some times too much only restaurant promotion.
Yeah.
And frankly, that irritates me a little bit. Because if you're going and you're just saying, this is an amazing place or this is amazing food, and you're just saying that because you got it for free or you went to some event, that's fine. You do you, but I just don't have a lot of respect for it.
I mean, one of the reasons why I even started writing was because all that was out there was, the Wichita Eagle, and there's maybe like one or two things online, like I think like some small blogs that weren't really active, and then Yelp. And with Yelp, all you're getting is like the very good or the very bad. There's no in between. And the Eagle, I respect what they do, but when you're getting paid to write, it's kind of hard to write your full opinion. And also, if you're not really spending your own money on it all the time, you're not fully invested into it. Like I think for us, it's not our full-time job. So we're putting our money that could be better used somewhere else. It's not technically our job to do this. We're doing it because we want to.
And I take value into the equation. It's not. I don't usually talk about service or anything. To me, I'm all about the food. So I'll talk about the food, but the value does come into the food.
Yeah.
But if service is bad enough, you will bring it up to an extent.
To an extent.
There's one review. I'm not going to say the place's name, but I think it was, you went there and you weren't, I guess, dressed.
Oh, yeah.
Over in downtown
and
Wichita.
I was treated very differently than the nicer dressed people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was, coming from work for a lunch, so I'm in my work clothes or whatever, and I could tell it was a definite difference of how I was treated compared to people that looked a little fancier. So.
Yeah.
So I had to point that out.
Yeah, and that's fair. If you have, I feel like there's a certain level of, if you're rude, just flat out rude. Hey, it's all's fair then. Like I went to a Chinese buffet place years ago with my mom. My mom's bad health and whatnot, and her memory's going bad, and she didn't know she left a tip.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this like $20 bill in her hand,
Mhm.
and I'm like, Mom, already covered it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the server comes up,
Mm-hmm.
and she starts bickering about whatever, and she just snatches the money out of my mom's hand.
Oh
And I
wow.
was like, what the hell? And it was the super buffet over on Douglas by Town East.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, so they've since closed then, but I'm like, stuff like that. Yeah, there's a line. If you cross being rude like that, then I'm not cool with that. But there's other things that are forgivable.
Yeah.
Now, here's another part: is a lot of people then comment like, "Did you tell this to the
Yeah.
Yeah.
manager?
Yeah.
Did you bring this up?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, most of the time, if I have a way of doing that, then yes."
Yeah.
Like when we went to CM Southern Eatery the other day, they asked us what we thought.
Yeah.
We were honest with them.
Yeah.
You know, we told them what was good and what was bad.
Yeah.
And they took the feedback well.
Yeah.
I-
And most places should take
Yeah.
the feedback. Well, it's the places that can't handle the
Mhm.
negative feedback that really kind of dig themselves in a hole, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that in a perfect world, if you have a poor experience or bad experience, and you have the time to seek out whoever it is, whether it's a manager or somebody else, seek out someone to tell, that's great. But understand that we're all busy people. I mean, there are times where I'm like, hey, it's because I travel a lot, where
Mhm.
I've got 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to get in, try this place out, and get out, or 20 minutes. It's like, no, I didn't also go do this other thing because I also have a full-time job. Again, in a perfect world, but
How have restaurants taken your feedback? So post review, have you had like some ones that take it very well that stand out?
Yeah, so some, just the other week, I said I didn't really like the food at Dino's, and their response was awesome. Professional.
What they say?
They said, "Hey, we we love, seeing your reviews and your honesty, and we respect that, and we're gonna work on what you've told us, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you come back and give us another
Yeah.
shot."
One of my favorite ones. Do you remember Little Lion Cafe?
yes,
They just sold ice cream,
Yep.
and then they started doing breakfast.
over at Revolutia.
Yeah, they had Revolution, and then they had also a location that was in where Los Adelitas is at.
Uh-huh.
Love the ice cream. I would take my daughter there, or my nephew. I think it was my niece and nephew at the time. So I take my niece and nephew there, ate ice cream, loved it. Then we started doing breakfast in the space where Los Adelitas is, and I think it was a breakfast burrito or something like that, and it was not good.
Mhm.
I didn't like it, and I wrote a review about it. I wasn't a fan, and I have a PO box that people can like send stuff to,
Mhm.
hate mail, whatever. And they wrote a handwritten letter,
Wow.
and they
Was
said
it like the letters cut out of magazines and stuff?
DIE die. No, it was a handwritten letter. They go, we appreciate your feedback, and we will work to make our breakfast burritos better, and hope you give us another try again. And they put like a little coupon in there. They go, we know you like our ice cream, so please take your nephew or niece back for ice cream.
That's
And I put a little-
awesome.
I was like, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
one, I don't need the free crap. It's like I never need the free food.
Yeah.
So it's just the handwritten letter was my favorite part of it all.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to use the coupon or whatever
Yeah.
it was, but it sends a signal of
That they care. and
we want
listen,
you to
yeah.
come back.
And this was like really early on when I was blogging, so I had barely any followers. Like,
Mhm.
I was really nobody. Still am a nobody, but
Mhm.
even less back then.
Sure. That's awesome. I've had a couple good experiences, but you've already told good experiences. My bad experience was there was a restaurant that I did a negative or truthful review on outside of Wichita. I won't say where, but the owner went on to my post as an individual, so it wasn't the restaurant, and like kept on posting and saying like, look at all these people that are at dinner tonight that disagree with the Kansas Gastronomist, and I mean
Some are very
several
combative.
different
Yeah.
nights. But I've got some really positive stories too. So
But as I'm sure for any business owner, seeing the criticism is probably really hard.
oh yeah,
I mean, that's like
yeah.
your heart and soul. And if you think you're a really good chef and you have all these people telling you your food is awesome, then you have this one some stranger coming in, like,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, nobody's
100%.
saying, "Oh, this food is whatever."
Yeah.
When you have hundreds saying otherwise.
And that's your point about
Yeah.
struggling with
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah.
No rhyme or
Yeah,
reason.
but
I think we all of us, stress the point that this is our opinion.
Yeah.
And that we always tell people, go to the place and form your own opinion.
Yep.
We're not telling you not to go there.
Mm-hmm.
We're never. Well, I don't think any of us have ever said, "Oh, you should never go there." You
No.
know.
Yeah.
No, that's not what this is about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of us have a vendetta
Yeah.
unless they've gone at you for some reason.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, no, it's just, hey, I didn't like the ramen.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, these blogs should be like someone talking to their friend or whatever and just telling a story of what they thought versus, and there's no right or wrong way to go about it, but yeah, there's a lot more promotional stuff out there, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a space for it. There's people out there who all they do is promote restaurants, and that's fine because
Mhm.
Advertising is expensive, and you have someone out there being your cheerleader, fantastic, kudos to them. But we're in a different space, we're in a different lane,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're trying to do, it's not gonna be well received by everybody.
Yeah.
Have you had any like really bad experiences with bad reviews and like you don't have to name names or anything, but people just didn't take it well? Outside of that one where you said someone's posting pictures.
Like, as far as the owners or
Other
as
people, because
other
I get
peop-
it both.
yeah.
Man. Oh, my inbox,
Yeah.
a private message will just light up.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's just. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm not. That was my experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I do. I post my food experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've had, a different experience
Yeah.
than me. That's fine. Then start your blog and talk about your experience.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to tell these people sometimes.
Well, I mean, I know that there have been people that have called me stupid. There's certainly been other
I
words.
do it all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. What I meant to say is but it can even be when it's a positive post.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you don't know what you're talking about. This place is crap.
Yes.
Or
Yeah, you flip
the
it around.
Converse.
Yeah.
The Converse, So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned that thing because I remember I did a pho list where I ranked all the pho places, and now I'm Vietnamese, and there's comments on there saying, "Oh, this obviously was not written by someone who's Viet." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, only if they knew."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's ultimately just my opinion. My mom's Vietnamese. Her opinions of her favorite pho places are totally different than mine.
Yeah.
But doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't make it right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My favorite comments are when, it happens all the time. Like if you got a bad review, and like someone goes on there and is like, "Oh, why are you relevant? Why does your opinion matter?" And I'm like, "Then why are you here commenting?
Yeah.
Like, why waste your breath?"
Yeah.
And they keep coming back.
Yep.
But to them, I appreciate the engagement, and please keep coming along.
Yeah. You've got we've all had our haters. Obviously, Eddie, since you've been doing it longest, probably the most. But Fert, you speak your mind, so
Yeah, so I've definitely pissed people off.
oh yeah,
People
I have too.
unfollow
But
me, but it's like that. I'm not like Eddie said. I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's like, but I am for a lot. A lot of people have told me that they've found a lot of value out of what I do, and
absolutely,
Yeah.
oh, I found my favorite place because of you.
Yeah.
They tell me that all the time, and
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
You gotta take the good with the bad.
Yeah. So
I agree with you. I mean, there are spaces that only you two occupy, or not very many other people occupy, and there's plenty of other people in other spaces that you don't need to do that.
And I feel like every industry has consumer ratings and grades. It's not just restaurants. Every industry has that. There's magazines that are devoted to giving the new Ford Bronco an F rating. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's every industry.
Sure.
It's kind of like sports talk radio.
Well, yeah,
Massive
sports-
industry.
yeah.
People listen to people who have no sports knowledge, just bagging football players.
Yeah,
It's a guy,
Stephen A. Smith.
yeah.
Mhm.
He makes millions,
And they
sitting
eat
there
it up.
bagging on people. So
and then that's someone's like, and sometimes they attack them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And have I crossed lines sometimes in restaurants? I'm sure I have.
Mhm.
No, I've probably made some jokes that I probably shouldn't have made, and that's me. You know, I would say it's not always intentional. Sometimes the place is just so bad, their service is so bad that I'm like, I gotta say something.
Yeah.
And how do I formulate it? And it's like it's a struggle over time.
Yeah.
That's why I have like a backlog of bad reviews. I'm like, oh, when do I want to do this one? Because I know it's not gonna feel good, especially if it's a revisited one.
Yeah.
So if I already gave them one bad review,
Yeah.
and I go back and try it again, I'm like, man, do I write a second one?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens if it's a third time and it's a bad one after a bad one? I'm like, then it feels like it's personal, probably.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe I just don't say anything, or should I? Because ultimately, I'm trying to write about all my experiences and not skip out on them.
Yep. Yep. I agree. That's a difficult quandary.
Jeremy, is when you have a place that's like horribly bad, do you like try to make it out again within a certain time frame, or?
See, I'm kind of. I know that you're supposed to, give a place a second try.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how much money I spend
Yeah.
eating out,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in a hurry to go back to places I did not like.
Yeah.
I'm just not, and that's why it took so long. It would have been years since I gone to Dino's,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just went because I had to go over there for work one day, and I was like, oh, it's been long enough, let me give it another try. And I gave it another try, and it was the same kind of outcome. So it's like, I don't know how it'll probably be another couple of years before I want to go to Dino's.
What if
again,
it's a
Yeah.
place that just opened? Like,
So that's a little different. So that usually you give a little grace to
Yeah.
a place that's brand new.
Mhm.
But in my experience, the brand new right when they open is good. I know that's not all the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times there's they want to make it perfect.
Mhm.
So usually the first time's good.
So for new places, how long do you usually tell people to wait? Like if someone
That's
goes,
a good
"Hey, there's a
question.
new restaurant opened up," how long should I wait to go to kind of like let them work out the kinks? Like how long
I
is
think
a
it
good kink
depends on
time?
the place. Like if I go and they're obviously don't have their shit together, I'll be like, give them a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I went and it was rocky,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so give them a couple weeks. Or other times it's like, man, they were like right off the bat,
Yeah.
like well-oiled machine, go check
Yeah.
them out.
Yeah.
TKG, you're in a different situation because you travel a lot.
Yeah.
So and when you're traveling a lot, there's probably less opportunity to revisit a place.
Both here locally or because I'm traveling.
It's
Mhm.
your only
So
choice.
Yeah.
and then also when I'm out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And
It's the only
I-
place around for
Yeah.
miles,
yeah, I mean, there's some places where you got to revisit. There's some places where I drove 2 hours out of my way.
Yeah.
That was inordinary, but I found a reason to get there,
Mhm.
and it wasn't that great. And like, am I really going to spend gas money to drive an extra 2 hours plus be home late just to check out this restaurant that was not that great? Or even like you
The
said,
risks you take, man.
Yeah.
or like you said, for like, I'm out of town probably 30% of the time, 40% of the time. And so I only have so much time to hit up all these Wichita restaurants. So do I go back to that place that was average at best to give it another chance, or do I go to somewhere new that hasn't had an opportunity? And I can think of one restaurant that I went to and I did not like it. It was a Mexican restaurant. Went second time, got something real, something else that I ended up loving. And I actually wrote about that. I said, "Hey, look, I went a second time. I haven't been able to go a second time a lot."
Yeah.
And I can think of a restaurant where I intended to go back a second time, but it was out of town. I'm like, man, am I really going to use my trip there to
Yeah.
go back to that same place?
Like for me, like when I travel, say more than 30, 40 minutes to go to a place, it's really a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge time investment driving there and back.
Yep.
And there's so many other cities around Wichita that I've never visited that I want to. So it really is just one and done. I mean, there's one place that I still have yet to write about. We did a road trip. I wasn't a big fan of. And you recently wrote about it out in, I was going to say at Rock, Kansas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was, to me, it's like, that's,
Yeah.
but.
And I think I kind of wrote that and
Yeah.
said there was some other stuff that they're known. I don't remember
Yeah.
what it was, but
It depends on the cuisine too.
Mhm.
I mean, some places they're like, they'll have such special things that nobody, then it's like, oh, then I'm gonna probably hurry back
Yeah.
to that place, or
Mhm.
if it's like diner food,
Like,
chicken fried steak.
I mean, out in Western Kansas, like just Tex-Mex upon Tex-Mex.
yeah, it's like, no, I'm not gonna hurry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't intrigue me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I would say the best part sometimes on revisiting a place is when there's like those redemption
The
stories.
redemption. I love
Yeah.
redemption.
So you
posts.
had one. I remember. I mean, it's been a while, but the one I recall from you was was it Rusty Nail?
The Rusty Nail. Yeah, the
Yeah.
first time I went to the Rusty Nail,
Yeah.
it was not good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they actually were very. They took your feedback pretty well,
oh yeah,
and then you went back.
yeah, and I go monthly. I think.
Yeah.
You know.
You do
Yeah.
like the burger of the month or whatever. and-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the Rusty Nail. So
That's awesome. I've actually only eaten at the Rusty Nail once.
So I mean, you said earlier like a lot of times you won't go back to a restaurant because the expense and whatnot. So like, what drove you to go back? Was it their feedback, the response to your original one?
no, it was probably just because it's they had a burger of the month or something that
Yeah.
was like, and it was cheap. And
So it
on
sounded good.
Tuesdays, Yeah, and it sounded good, and I'm like, oh, I got to go
Give
try
it
this,
another chance.
But if it's the same, like I love these restaurants, Pig in Pig Out. We all three
Yeah.
ended up at because the owner's doing something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
It's not the same old menu, the played out menu that you've had for years and years and years,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh yeah, nostalgia is great and all. I know a lot of people that love the nostalgia about places, but it's like, if you ain't trying new stuff and coming out with specials and stuff, it's not intriguing.
Yeah. That's a great point.
So on that note, I love what if questions. Would you go back to McDonald's? Like, say, I know you have sworn off McDonald's. It's been how many years?
Over 15 years.
15 years.
Since I've had McDonald's.
What if they brought back like brought in a whole menu of like their foreign dishes, like everything that's served in the Philippines or Indonesia was brought into Wichita, Kansas, so you can try different takes on
I
McDonald's.
probably still would not eat McDonald's.
I'm gonna get you to try McDonald's one day, one of these days.
I'll roll with you to McDonald's if you're needing some company.
I
Eddie.
used to eat. There's a funny story I tell. The McDonald's at Central and Tyler.
Yep.
Right. Well, we were late night. Having the munchies, wanting some. This is back in the $1 Big and Tasty
Yeah.
days.
Mhm.
The Big and Tasty was kind of like a quarter pounder, but it had the lettuce,
Yeah.
tomato, and stuff on it. And my buddy was driving an Eclipse, the old school Mitsubishi
Yeah.
Eclipse, and I'm a big guy, and I'm in the back seat, and that back seat is not very big.
Mhm.
And we go through. It's late at night, and I get 4. I call them Big and Nasties, but the Big and Tasties, and literally we pull out of that parking lot, and by the time we hit Central and Ridge, I had all 4 Big and Tasties down in the back seat of that Mitsubishi.
So obviously they weren't
Eclipse.
that nasty. If you're
Well,
knocking
yeah.
it forward.
Well, yeah, but that's when I was a young,
Were you still hungry?
I probably was, yeah. But my friends it blew my friends' minds because they look back and I'm already done with 4.
So what
Big
was
and
what was the
Tasties.
turning point that kind of you're like no more McD's?
When I started really, for a while there, I was not that wealthy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I was a broke college
Yeah.
kid for a while, and so that $1 Big and Tasty was very appealing to me.
Yeah.
Well, now that I have money, and I can afford whatever, would I waste it on? To
Mhm.
me, what is garbage now? To me,
Yeah.
McRib. God,
No,
Love
that's
that.
garbage. to
love
me.
that stuff.
I mean, I'm not anti McDonald's
Yeah.
in the sense of I will never return, but I can't say that I've been to McDonald's in several years.
Has your daughter ever had McDonald's?
Oh yeah.
Does she still eat McDonald's?
Yeah.
Okay, at least you're not
My
depriving her.
mother-in-law
I can respect that.
took her while she was in town
Yeah.
a couple times here, and I'm like, don't feed my daughter that garbage.
All right. Well, any last thoughts on negative, bad reviews? Any commentary? Any feedback to the haters, trolls, other bloggers who hate the bad reviews?
If you don't like it, don't follow it. That's all I
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
say. Like,
I agree. And just to add to that, there is a need for truthfulness, which sometimes can be negative. Hopefully, more often than not, is positive. But it's about being truthful. It's not about being negative.
yeah, I don't think maybe less than 10% of all our posts are ever negative.
Yeah.
It's not like we're out just blasting places away, you know.
Yeah, and that actually might be a better name for the podcast. This episode, Truthful Reviews.
Truthful
Instead
reviews.
of bad reviews. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
there
the
we go.
smartest thing you've ever said to me.
Thank you, Eddie.
All right. Well, Fert, TKG, once again, as always, thanks for hopping on.
Been a pleasure.
Hope to have you guys back.